Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We have Neisha here.
It's me.
Here's Neisha. And Alyssa. Here, Neisha, you put your hand up too, Alyssa, too.
It's very invasive, guys.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. We are grown-ups, I promise.
Yes.
Well, we're mothers, and we're actually here to talk about mothering things and being mothers and being on keto. And we're so grateful that Neisha and Alyssa, which I actually didn't actually say, we're too busy playing with our hands. This is Alyssa from Compass Wellness. This is Alyssa, and this is Neisha. Anyway, we are here today because we wanted to chat about all things keto that has to do with mothering and being a mother. Because as we know, being a mother is hard, and it's Mother's Day coming up soon, and we have all of these challenges and trials and everything barrages us with how do you feed your kid right? What do you do? What are the right things to do? And so I thought it'd be so awesome to have you two mothers in here to be able to talk with me. We have a little bit of different space. I have adult children. So freaky, super weird. And then you guys have kids that have pretty much grown up keto/carnivore, right? And so it's really awesome to be able to hear your experiences and your kids' experiences. I got into keto when my kids had already had lots of mac and cheese and chicken nuggets and all the things. So it's been a little bit of a hard transition for us to kind of get into like healthier eating. Not that we ate horribly bad before, but we just didn't know what we didn't know, right? So what we did as a family really quick was we just kind of phased everything out and just went to the store and didn't buy the stuff. And so when it wasn't in the house, it wasn't in the house. So that's kind of how we, transitioned over to having pretty much keto foods only in our home. And now that the kids are older, they have cars, they buy things, they go buy some carbs here and there. But for the most part, they know what they should be eating. They don't always eat that way, but they do sometimes, right? So that's not helpful very much, but it's nice to know. I think deep down, they know if they want to feel better, how they can eat.
Yep.
And they know, like, if they have an exam or something, okay, like, let's make sure we get enough protein that day. Let's make sure we get enough sleep. So I think that, trying to teach them the right things is good, and hopefully they'll just come back to it, right? That's what I'm hoping. But anyway, so that's my little spiely story. But I wanted to get you guys thinking really quick before we get into everything. Kind of think of maybe a favorite Mother's Day memory. It can be with your own mom. It can be with you and your family right now or whatever. But maybe at the very end, we can kind of bring that back up again. And if anybody in the comments wants to write down like a favorite Mother's Day memory, that would be fun to hear from you. So we'll bring that up. I've got some customer questions here, and I wanted to ask each of you kind of how you deal with some of these things. Is it safe to put your kids on a keto diet, right? What do you think?
Well, I think we know what Dr. Berry would say. Is your kid a human? And if so, then yes, of course, a low carb, highly nutrient dense way of eating is not only appropriate for a child, but it is really the diet any child should be on, because we want their little bodies to be developing at the speed that they were meant to, with all the nutrients that are required for that. And those nutrients come from animal proteins, animal fats, and some low carb vegetables and fruits thrown in there too. Some nuts, those kind of things. Those are totally appropriate for children. Our kids have been on a ketogenic diet since they were in utero. They were breastfed and they were weaned onto we just call it a proper human diet. We don't follow any macros. I get that question sometimes, like, what macros do your kids eat? We're not counting their macros. We're like, here's some burger patties, eat what you would like.
Yeah.
And then sausage and eggs and bacon for breakfast. They have fruit throughout the day, nuts throughout the day, and then they have some low carb ketogenic products here and there when we're traveling and doing such like that. I think parents get a little bit overstimulated with all the information when it comes to diet. And it's like, are you doing better than, the standard American diet by giving your kids real whole foods, animal protein, animal fat, and trying to stay as clean as possible? Then what doctor is going to say that that is not appropriate for a child?
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
mean, the thing that I say all the time is everybody should be eating real food. And if you are doing a properly formulated ketogenic diet, then you should be eating real food 85 to 90% of the time. I will say that in our house, kind of like you, Miriam, like we have full bar, like full stop. We don't bring things into our house. And as my dad lovingly has told me many times, and Neisha has heard me say this, my dad used to say, you can get happy in the same pants that you got mad in about it. And so I basically look at my own children and say, I'm really sorry if you want food A that they've seen out in the wild, but those are not foods that we're going to bring into our house. And I'm really sorry that you're upset about that. You're welcome to be mad, and you'll also be okay. So in our house, we do real food. We do some like paleo, substitutes, because I also think we can build bridges. And so, yeah, I'm not going to bring potato chips into our house, but I will offer them if we're going to go to a party or something. I'll say, hey, I can bring some siete chips with us if you'd like to have that as an option. And they can say yes or no to that. I mean, Bradley is going to be 8, and so he's really coming into the age of beginning to be a lot more autonomous with his food decisions. And that's been a very interesting time, because up until now it's like, no, dog, this is what you're going to eat. And now he's going to school, which is a whole thing. And so there's a lot of things that happen at school, or things that he's offered. And I just have conversations with him rather than being the mom who might be very hardcore. And if you are that mom out there, you are amazing and I love you. I just can't be that mom. And so I talked to him about, how did having that make your body feel?
Yeah.
Did it make it feel good, or did it not make you feel good? If you don't feel like it made your body feel well, maybe next time you should make a different choice, so that it's not necessarily even demonizing foods, but it's just be real and like listen to how your body reacts to things. And I think that that's something that I wasn't taught growing up. And at the end of the day, like, you can't tell me that burger patties and avocados and scrambled eggs or having breakfast for dinner is going to be worse than goldfish and donuts and muffins and all the things that I see on a regular basis at my son's school, and tell me that somehow I'm doing like my son a disservice. And so, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, you just look at people and go, everybody can eat real food.
Thank you. What are some favorite meals that your family enjoys that are still nutritious, of course? Like just like dinner meals.
So we are very minimalist when it comes to meals at our house. It's just how we do things, and it works well for us right now, which Beckett is going to be 5 in October and Bonnie turns 2 in July. So that's where we are right now. So this is working well now. In a few years, maybe we have to adjust things, but we only have meat and eggs and cheese and nuts and berries and fruit. That's what we have. So when it comes to what we're eating for dinner, it's one of 3 choices. It's if I've cooked something special, or if I'm working on a recipe, they have the option to eat that. Bonnie usually does. Beckett goes, ew. If it doesn't look like what he wants, which is very similar to what his dad eats. So he will eat steak nearly every single day. That's what he eats. He eats sausage for breakfast. He eats steak for lunch. He eats steak for dinner. And that's what he eats every single day. Sometimes bacon for breakfast, but usually sausage from the Peterson Farms brand, because it's really clean, good ingredients, and it's pre-cooked, so it's easy for moms to just like heat it up in the microwave. So that's a plus. And that's just what they get. Period. It's very uncomplicated. If I'm feeling fancy and I want to make chicken nuggets with my recipe, then I will do that. And Beckett still will have either a burger patty or a steak.
Yeah. We're
really
pretty similar in our house.
That really
too.
simplifies things, though, because I think a lot of times we have such choice paralysis, and that's like the fight for the day. Like, what am I going to make for dinner? I don't know. And like, if you just go with what you go with, easy peasy. Like that makes, you can do more enjoyable things than just stress about cooking all the time. So
And that's
go
what
ahead.
he asks for too. So it's not like I'm saying here's steak for dinner and he doesn't want it. He requests steak. That's what he wants.
Yeah. I think when I realized that it doesn't have to be entree, side, you know, and it doesn't have to be on a plate with candles and all, like, for my kids to feel like they're getting fed and a nutritious meal, that was such a weight off of my shoulders. And I know that that can be hard if you're in a family where maybe you're doing keto on your own or your family's not quite there yet, you know. And once again, that's why I talk about bridge foods a lot, because there are ways to get there, you know. But I'm really lucky in that my husband, when I started doing keto, I was like, hey, look what we're doing. And he was like, okay, great. And so he jumped on the bandwagon really fast. And then we've raised our kids in this. And so, like, yeah, Bradley's the same. If you ask him what he wants for dinner, he will always say steak. Never say, maybe he will say meatballs, steak or meatballs. And when I realized that it only takes me like 12 minutes to cook a steak in a cast iron skillet in the oven, my life was forever changed, because in my head, steak and like finer cuts of meat like took forever and was very fancy, because the only time I ever experienced those were in restaurants. Right. And my dad is a griller, but my dad is the like low and slow, I'm going to sit outside for 6 hours with the meat and stare at it and say nice things to it. And that's great. But like, I don't have that kind of time in this season of life. I need to be able to cook a steak in 12 minutes and get it on a plate. And so for us, it's thank God for cast iron skillets and thank God for air fryers, because that's what I use on a regular basis. It's steak or chicken with the skin on in the air fryer so it gets nice and crispy. It's meatballs. It's even like fully cooked hamburger patties, like praise God for HEB. We buy those in multiple bags at the store, because some days, especially after working all day, I don't feel like cooking. But I can throw, you know, 6 or 8 fully cooked burger patties in a skillet and have dinner ready in 10 minutes. You know, most of us, Hannah is the vegetable person. I don't know where she came from, but she's her own little person. And so I will often do like carrots or tomatoes or cucumbers, some kind of veg that she's feeling in the moment, because it changes. But me and James and Bradley, we mostly just eat the meat. And a lot of times breakfast for dinner, bacon and sausage and eggs, you can't go wrong. So that's what we do too.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much. What we do a lot is like a taco salad, because we'll get like the 5 or 10 pound like chub of ground beef and just make the whole thing up into taco meat. And we'll use it for 2 meals because we're 8 people. And the nice thing about taco salad is it can be whatever you want it to be. So sometimes we'll get like the Quest chips if we're feeling, you know, extra fancy. But most of the time sometimes we'll do like the cheese and make it into the taco shell. Not very often because I have to do that. But a lot of times it's just meat, olives, tomatoes, cheese, sour cream. Like pretty much that's it. And then if the kids want to have lettuce, they can have lettuce. Sam has meat and sour cream. That's his taco salad. That's his favorite taco salad ever. So it doesn't really matter, but it just kind of works out that that they can kind of feel like they have a choice when we do it that way. So that's one of our go-tos. And then we have a couple other like recipes. A lot of times we'll do pork chops. And then of course breakfast for dinner is a favorite also for us.
If you look back and you think about like your memories, like what are your core memories? Like I know for me, my hands down favorite recipe that my mom made was beef stroganoff. But not like real beef stroganoff, right? Like it was the hamburger meat with the packet of stuff and the noodles.
Hamburger
right?
helper.
Yeah. It did not take very long. But it was my favorite thing, you know? And so it's like, I think that we imagine that when our kids get older, they are going to hang on to these meals that took hours. And when in reality, their favorite thing is going to be I think the thing that kept you out of the kitchen and maybe at the table with them and having conversations with them, you know, more so than, oh, mom slaved away in the kitchen and we didn't even see her, you know, then she threw something together so that we could all sit down and we could all have a conversation together.
I get this comment a lot on my What I Eat in a Day vlogs that we don't have structured meal times because we all eat when we're hungry, and that is multiple different times a day.
How dare
And
you, Neisha?
how dare I, right? How are you connecting with each other? And I'm like, oh, well, we play outside in the creek. We color together. There's all these activities we do that we bond together over. It's not over food. And the bonds that I do have, like with Beckett over food, are because he's in the kitchen helping me cook. That's where we bond over food. It's the activity of cooking and putting our lesson plan into the cooking. Like here's measurements and science experiments and things of that nature. And I think people really put a little too much weight on that whole core memories at the dinner table thing. And unless it's Christmas or Easter or sometimes Sunday dinner, we actually will sit down because the whole family comes over and I cook something special. But on the day to day, like Beckett eats his breakfast at 10:30, Bonnie eats hers at 9, I eat at 12, Ken doesn't eat till 5, and like we're just not sitting at the table, and that's not a bad thing. So if your new way of eating looks new around the dinner table too, that's okay. There's other ways to bond with each other that don't involve sitting down. Like those things are nice and fine and special, but it doesn't have to be that way all the time. And I don't feel like we're missing out at all.
Yeah.
And I've worked with clients before too who maybe that is the only time that they get to sit down, but they want to practice intermittent fasting, or they want to, honor a different, like they want to eat when they're hungry. And so oftentimes I'll say, have you ever just thought about sitting down while everyone's eating and having like a cup of bone broth or a cup of tea? You can still be a part of that, only, and it's okay that you're not eating because you're choosing to do things differently. And that's being the silent example, because your family's going to pick up on that. Like, and you don't have to tell them about it. You don't have to make a big deal about it, but you can just say, oh, I'm not hungry right now. I ate earlier, but I want to just sit here and hang out with you. Like those are things that you can do, and you can make any way or any style of, sitting down at the table together work for you.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no one rule that it needs to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you brought that up too, because I think that's something that is kind of ingrained in our brain, just like the whole fat-free, all these years, is that, you have to sit at the table, you have to do these things. And when I was growing up, we did not sit at the table. So it was really important for me as a family to do that. And we still do, if we can, sit at the table for dinner, because it's important. But just being able to respect other people's wishes. And then also, if the children decide they don't want to eat, that's okay. And I think that's really difficult, because as a parent, you're like, no, you'll eat this and you'll eat your whole plate. And that's just also been ingrained in our brains to do. So when my teenage daughter sits down after track and she doesn't want to eat anything, but then she eats 2 hours later, I'm like, I'm not fixing it. You can fix your own food. But I need to, if they're going to respect me if I don't want to eat, I need to respect them too. And I think that's so difficult. It's you kind of have to break away from some of these things that have been pushed on us for all these years.
Yeah. We're the same way. If we are having Sunday dinner and Beckett doesn't want to eat, then he goes and he plays. As long as he's not into trouble, he can do what he wants. And then when he's ready to eat, then I make him his plate and he comes and he eats. But I think my grandma never, if I didn't want what she made for dinner, guess what?
You ate
You
it.
didn't eat?
Yeah.
Tough. And eventually I was like, well, it's not bad. I guess I'll have a little bit. I'm hungry. I was hungry enough to where it was actually fine, and I wasn't going to be a little whiny baby about it. And I think we've, as a culture, maybe steered a little too far away from the way of our grandmothers, I guess.
Yeah. What's the quote? Hunger is the best spice, I
It
think.
is. It is.
Oh,
when your kid's hungry enough, they will eat what's around.
Yeah, and in our house, mostly with my youngest, there is oh, I'm not hungry, but can I have a snack?
Right.
And so in our house, it's you can eat what's on your plate. I don't particularly care at what time you decide you want to eat said thing on your plate, but that's what's for dinner, and we also, especially with her, will say you have to eat your protein first before you can have fruit or a popsicle, whatever it is that you want, that you have your eye on the prize, child. You have to eat your protein first. And there are days where she will decide that that's the thing she wants to do, and she eats her protein, and then she ends up having her, whatever treat that she wants. And there are days where She just doesn't do it, and we'll try the rest of the evening, and we're like, no, it's right over there on the table waiting for you, friend. She's much more hit or miss than Bradley is, where Bradley is like, these are the rules. Yes, I can absolutely do that for you, ma'am. And so, but I think that having some kind of rule or some kind of boundary is really helpful, especially for the tinier humans, because then all we're trying to do is set them up for success. Like I said, when they start to get more autonomous and they can start deciding, I'm going to go buy this food and have this food. If we can have some of those pillars already in place, then hopefully they can figure out that when they don't do that, their bodies don't feel good. And so, well, maybe mom knows a couple things, and so then they can take that into practice as they get older.
Yeah, I feel like we're just following fundamental parenting steps with nutrition, just like you would not let your kid, go smoke a cigarette right now because they're 5 and live in the house with you, and you know that is horrible for them. At a certain point, they'll have to make that decision on their own. But if we are setting a good example and giving them a good foundation, then the odds that they make the right decision when they get the chance to are in their favor, because we've been basically training them to be adults this whole time. That's like our job as parents, is to make sure they grow up to be good adults.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much. What secrets have you found to help save time during meal prep?
So the only meal prep I do is that I wash the berries ahead of time and put them in mason jars. They seem to stay fresher in a mason jar. I don't know if that's my imagination or not, but they do. They don't get the mold on them. They stay pretty firm. So that way in the morning after they have their sausage, I'm just able to just like dump their raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, whatever onto their plate for them to have without any muss or fuss. Like, they're ready to go. Other than that, that's it. That's my meal prep, because I just make sure I have meat in the refrigerator. Like, is there ground beef? Are there steaks? If I'm going to make chicken nuggets that week, do I have ground chicken in the refrigerator? Is there plenty of bacon? Are there plenty of eggs? And that's it.
Yeah. I wish that I could say I was a meal prepper, but I'm not most of the time, because meals don't last. They don't ever go as far as I think they will in my house. I'm like,
it's one day.
I'm like, I'm going to get a whole dinner out of this and maybe lunch the next day. And then the meal's over and I'm like, there is no more food. What happened? Yeah. And so that's my plight in life that I'm currently having to readjust, because my almost 8-year-old eats like a grown man, and I didn't know that was going to happen as early as it is now happening. So I'm having to readjust, but I think the way that I meal prep is the way that I shop. So on my Instagram and in my Facebook, I only buy meat that has a yellow tag on it when it's on clearance, because to feed the 2 men in my house plus me and Hannah takes a lot of food. And so we have to shop on a budget. And so what I try and tell clients, if you want to meal prep, like, God go with you, that's amazing, you go do you. But if you don't want to meal prep, then let the yellow tag be your guide in the store. And what I mean by that is, every week when I go shopping, I'm only looking for yellow tags. Like, I don't buy meat full price. I haven't done that in years. I do have like a deep freezer where we keep a lot of things. So if I see it, I will buy it. And then basically what I do is I have 3 to 4 recipes for ground beef that I know everybody in the house likes. I have 2 to 3 things that I do with chicken when I see it on yellow tag clearance. And so by doing that, I already know exactly what I'm going to cook when I buy that meat, and I either, use it or I freeze it. And then from there, by doing it, then you get a variety, because you're not always buying the same thing or feeling like, man, I'm stuck with all this ground beef. What do I do with it? Well, I've got chicken, I've got pork, I've got ribs, like, I've got different things, and I have a couple recipes for each cut. And so that kind of helps me. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of like having to sit down and go, what are we going to eat this week? And having to really kind of quote unquote meal prep. But I know that may not work for everybody, but that's made it a lot easier in our house to cook.
I will say I do meal prep sauces. So if I'm going to make my own ranch, I do that on Saturdays. So if I'm making ranch, or if I'm making homemade blue cheese, or if I'm making homemade mayonnaise, or like anything like that, I make on Saturday, because on Sunday I just try not to do anything at all. except for
feel
we
it.
go to church and then we have an easy meal. And that also vegetables, because we do integrate vegetables into something. Like I make stir fry sometimes. Sometimes I make sausage and peppers and onions. I don't buy fresh vegetables anymore, which sounds crazy, but I buy frozen and they don't go rotten and I don't lose money. And they are actually more nutrient dense because they are frozen at peak, perfection, supposedly. And so that's how I make sure that I don't have rotting things in my refrigerator. And in the summer, sometimes I make salad. So I'll buy romaine and I'll chop it up the day I get home. The day I get home from Walmart or wherever I'm shopping, that gets chopped up, washed, and put in a Ziploc bag where I can see it, because that's going to go bad in a few days. Like I have to be like, okay, so I'm going to have some salad the first few days of the week. Here's the romaine lettuce. It's washed. It's ready to go. Those type of things, very rarely I do. It's mostly like 1 month out of the year or 1 day out of the month that I'm utilizing those things. But it does make life easier, especially for busy moms.
Yeah, if I put a vegetable in a drawer, it's gone forever. Like
it doesn't
it's
exist
gone
anymore.
and I'm not eating it. I can guarantee it.
Yes. Yeah. Same with the salsa I make. So we're up pico de gallo, whatever. I make that the day I get home from the grocery store, because like it just goes into the ether. I don't know where it goes. But 3 months later, I'm like, whoa, I forgot about those. They look like they should probably go in the trash a long time ago.
Something that we have liked to do, which we've done off and on through the years, depending on how busy we are, is I have a calendar and then I have my kids just pick a day. I'm like, pick whatever day you want, pick whatever recipe you want to make. It has to be something the entire family can eat. And then they pick a day, and then a lot of times, like Sam, a few years ago, he's been doing simpler stuff now, but he was getting a keto cookbook, and then he'd pick the hardest thing in the darn cookbook, and I'm like, well, we're making it. You picked it. So I would buy the groceries for the recipe, and then he and I, and anyone who ever wanted to help, mostly just he and I, would make that recipe for dinner that night. And so it's been fun to be able to help them see, okay, you're in charge of Wednesday. That is your day. Everyone will be hungry if you do not make that day be a meal. So it's been really fun for them to be responsible, for them to be able to choose, and for them to own their decision. Because then they have to think of other people and how their actions affect other people. And if they choose something that they're not going to be full on, then everybody else is also going to not be full. And so they have to really think like, how is this going to help feed my family? How much will I need? Like it can help them prepare. And I'm really grateful that we did that now that I have these adult children that can go out and be like, oh, Mom, meat's expensive. You're right. Meat's expensive. Get those yellow tags.
Yeah. Amen. I really love that. I mean, I think, I didn't learn how to cook until I changed my diet in 2017. Like that was really, and my mom was amazing and she cooked for us, but like I was in so many things that I was never home long enough to learn. And then I went to college and they did not teach me how to cook there either. And so I feel like I really want both of my kids to be able to leave my house knowing how to cook for themselves and it not come out of a box. You legit know how to scramble eggs. You might know how to cook a steak. Like, how to do some of these basic things that like, you don't have to know how to do everything, but I need you to know how to do a couple things, instead of just good luck and go forth and they don't know how to do anything.
I think it also gives them a really, a sense of pride when they've made this meal. I know Beckett is always so excited to let, his grandma taste the butter that he made, or, Dad's home, tell him to put that butter I made on the steak. He really owns that he cooked this thing and he wants everybody to try it. And then he sees that it's great and he gets that positive feedback and he just still wants to learn and do more things and cook more things. And I often get the comments sometimes that Beckett should be outside with his dad because he's a boy. And I'm like, well, he is. Dr. Berry just doesn't know how to pick up a video camera and record. He doesn't stay in the kitchen. But also, he will one day, hopefully, be an independent human and go off to college. And I want him to be able, like Alyssa said, to scramble eggs, cook a steak, and do independent things. And also maybe one day, romance a young lady and cook her a lovely meal and show her that he loves her and he can also cook a meal. This is not just about like him being in the kitchen because I, think that that's where his learning comes from. We also, like I said, we integrate math, we do science, like we're homeschooling. So cooking in the kitchen is not only producing a fine meal, it's also teaching fractions and all of that
Chemistry.
kind of stuff. Chemistry. Yeah. Just extracurricular activities that are also learning experiences that he doesn't have to sit in a school in a four-walled room and just sit at a desk and be still. He gets to play and make things and then see his family members love the things that he might do.
I love that because I'm still waiting for Pythagorean theorem season to kick in. That's all I'm saying.
Something I noticed that my children have done also is be more respectful of each other and of me, because they realize like they have to make this thing and it is difficult. And when it's hard, then they feel that, they hear that praise, like, oh, you did this thing. Then they see that, oh, other people do hard things and maybe I should say thank you to them. And I feel like that's been really beneficial for our family, and especially like if they have a recipe and it goes wrong and I'm there and we're helping them, like, oh, you know what? That's what happens when you get an egg in, the shell in the thing or whatever it ends up being, or you measure wrong. Yeah, that stinks. Let's just start all over again. It's fine. And we can kind of work through those problems together and then still have that success of accomplishing that thing. So I really appreciate the respect I was not expecting my kids to have for me because we did that project. And something else I also had them do was I gave them like $50 and I said, here's a week of meals you need to make for us for the entire summer, not like the month. And then you had this much money for a week. And then they had to go together, the 5 of them, one was a baby. And they went to the store and they made a list and they decided what they wanted to eat and what they wanted to make. And it was cute to see the things that they ended up making themselves because it was easier, so they could buy something that was somewhat pre-made. So that was kind of fun too, like experience for them to like budget. I'm like, Mom, that costs a lot of money. You're right, it does.
Sure does.
So it's really fun to kind of do that too. Okay, next question. What are some healthy keto snacks that I can keep on hand when I need a quick energy boost for myself or kids?
We have multiple bags of pork rinds in our house 24/7, 365. Those are things both Beckett and Bonnie and me and Ken, we all love pork rinds. We get the Max, MACS Max pork rinds. We also like Porking Good, but you got to kind of check the ingredients on some of them because they kind of sneak in a little sneaky stuff every now and then. And then we also use nuts, like I said, berries. We also use the Simple Meal almond flour crackers. They're really good. And the kids, they're very nice for road trips. That and pork rinds. Of course, kids are going to make messes. I got asked one time, what's a mess-free snack? And I was like, do you have kids?
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing. They're going to make a mess. I don't care what you give them. A mess shall be made. And that's just the way that it goes. So those are the main things we take. And then beef jerky. Sometimes we'll pick up beef jerky. The Duke's I don't know if they're called hot dogs, but they're little miniature sausages. Bonnie likes those pretty good too. And pickles. And I know, Alyssa, you probably have done this where you get the bento boxes for traveling and stuff, and you just put all their little favorite things. Beckett loves pepperoni too, so we'll put pepperonis in there for him. And that's just like, it's a Lunchable without the crackers, basically. And if you want the crackers, the Simple Meal crackers are really good alternative. So that's essentially what we do on road trips, travel, church, basically anything where other kids are going to have snacky snacks. And they're going to want a snacky snack, even if they're not hungry. They're like, they see them eating. Oh, well, I want something too. So that gives them something to, do with their hands.
Yeah. I was like, I do like the little munchkin cups that have the lid where you can stick their hand in and pull stuff out. That helps a little bit with the mess, but
it helps a little bit.
A little bit, but it's still really difficult.
Yeah, we have tons of those. I really love the silicone ones. I don't remember the brand, but I got them on Amazon, and they're really aesthetically pleasing, so they just look nice. And that's what Bonnie put. We put ice cubes in there. She likes ice cubes too. Like, it doesn't matter. She just wants something in that cup, right? And then electrolytes. We always pack electrolyte packets because that's what the kids drink. They love water with electrolyte powder in them, and they like Ultima and Element. Those are their 2 favorites.
Yeah, Hannah always asks to go to Mother's Day out, she'll be like, can I have some pineapple orange water, which is the Relight Immunity. That's her favorite flavor. So like she gets a little half a scoop in her water. Anytime we travel with a snack bag. And so because all four of us, we snack a little differently than everybody else, so pork rinds are always, in there, bags of macadamias. The kids like pistachios and cashews, so we'll put those in there for them. Sometimes we'll travel with like freeze dried fruit, little packs, because that's easy in the car. We'll do meat sticks of any variety. I love carnivore crisps and carnivore snacks, and because they are not cheap, I will buy them specifically for road trips. And then the other thing that everybody in our family loves are keto bricks. And so if I think ahead, I will melt them down into tiny things in like a silicone candy mold or things like that. If not, then I will open up a brick and my children will fight over it and gnaw on the entire thing from the back of the car and make an absolute mess. But they love Bell's brownie batter, the one that has the organ blend. They think that is the bee's knees. It's also my favorite too.
It's also my favorite.
How funny, this has organs in it.
And I'm like, please stop eating my brownie batter bricks. Like, these are mine. Like,
see, I don't eat them. So anytime we get our box, they go right to the kids. And it's just hilarious. The very first time we got the brownie batter one, Beckett ate half of one, like just like little rabbit with his little teeth marks all in it. And then I got to looking at it and I was like, can these have organs in them? And he's like, what? I said, yeah. And Beckett loves them.
Yes. Yeah. Hannah will sit there in her car seat holding her brick, being like, Mom, this is so good. So, yeah, I mean, but we just take a bag with us and just take everything with us so that wherever we are, I love the idea of like the little bento boxes or the little snack things that you can pack to take with you. Because there's always going to be snacks. There's always going to be kids having things and your kids are going to be like, well, what about me? And you get to make that decision, right? Like we sometimes let our kids have things that other kids have, right? And like I said, as Bradley's getting older, I'm letting him decide how he feels about this. So my favorite story that I tell is Halloween when I think he was 6 years old. And no, he was 5. And so I said, okay, buddy, we went trick-or-treating. And I said, you may pick 5 things. And then we're going to pass out literally the rest of the candy. So we put everything he got in a bowl and gave it to the teenagers. And so he picked out his 5 favorite things. And the next day at school, he was in such a bad mood that his teacher called him a grumpopotamus. And he was so offended that every year on Halloween, he is like very careful about what he decides to eat or not eat and how much. And he will literally be like, that's enough, Mom. I don't need to be a grumpopotamus at school tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, Beckett, that's the same thing that we did with him. And we don't tell him no, unless it's something like he is not allowed to have airheads or anything that will stick to the teeth, like those things, like that's so bad for their teeth. And they're not great at brushing their teeth at that age. It's like they're halfway doing a decent job, right?
Yeah.
So he's not allowed to have very specific types of candy, and he's not allowed to have red candy, no red dye at all. Red 40 makes him into a nutcase. It's weird. It's the strangest thing. So he knows there are some hard no's, just like with what I eat. I have green foods, eat as many as I want, yellow foods sometimes, but not a whole lot, and red foods like I never ever touch. So he has those categories too. So he knows in his Easter basket, that was, a few weeks ago. So that's a good example. He was allowed to pick a few pieces of candy. But the first time we did that, he snuck and got a few more pieces of candy, and then he had diarrhea. And so that was his negative feedback. So he did not want that to happen ever again. It was not a thing that he was happy about. He had the squirty poops, and he don't like the squirty poops. We try not to have the squirty poops, okay? And so he got that negative feedback, and now he knows I can have a few pieces, and then I don't even have to go and throw that Easter basket away. It's still sitting in there, still has candy in it. He has not touched it because he made that decision on his own because he got that negative feedback. Like, we don't eat that all the time. This kind of candy makes me feel bad if I eat too much. And so he went and got a haircut the other day, and the girl gave him 2 little teeny tiny pieces of candy. He ate one and he put the other in the refrigerator for later. Like,
I
he
love
can
that.
self-regulate, and
Yeah.
I don't tell him, no, you can't have that as long as it's not those specific types of candy. I'm just like, all right, kid, you know, but if you get the squirty poops, that's on you. And so he's only 4. He's 4, and he has already understood that relationship to the ingredients in food and how it makes him feel. And I'm so proud of him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay for a food to not love you back.
Yeah.
You know, and to be able to say, like, that's not a thing that I can have. You know, I mean, we're the same way. Like, my family, you know, my family goes nuts for every holiday, but we got so much candy, and it was from other members of the family, because, like, they got a bunny that was this big, and that's it, you know. And then everybody in my family brought stuff over, and it has not gotten touched, because the other thing that we do is we're like, okay, on the day, on Easter, on Halloween, on Christmas Day, you may have and indulge in those things that you've gotten, but then the holiday is over. Like, after that, it's done and it's gone. And so we're going to keep on moving, you know, with our normal modus operandi, and we're not going to hang on to the candy for weeks on end. We're not going to hoard it until the next eating season holiday, because there's going to be something next, you know, because that's how we do things here. And so there's candy that I have that I'm sitting here that I looked the other day and I was like, I really should just throw that away because we're not going to eat it.
That's what I said. I was like, I can't believe that's still sitting there. But also, I'm so proud that he hasn't came and gotten all that candy. Like, it's still there. But also, Neisha, you need to clean the Easter basket out and put it away.
Alyssa.
Easter is over.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a specific, like, mother question. As a mother, how do you incorporate physical activity and exercise into your lifestyle?
I don't have to do a thing. These kids are running. They run everywhere they go. They run from the bathroom to the bedroom to the kitchen to the living room. They just run. I don't have to do a thing. But we do, you know, talk about getting stronger, building our muscles, and, you know, that we need to eat appropriately so that those muscles in our bones really grow. And Beckett watches me do my poor excuse of a workout when I'm not in the gym lifting crazy weights. You know, I'm just trying to not get osteoporosis. Okay. So he loves to I bought them. So Bonnie has a set of 1 pound dumbbells that she loves to just do her little thing with. And then Beckett has his 3 pounds that he could probably move to 5 by now because he's been using those 3s for a long time. But he, you know, he'll curl up and we watch a video on YouTube and there's a YouTube channel, Go Noodle. And the videos stimulate them to do activity. So they'll be like, jump, 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 and then like squat down and jump. And like, it's PE basically on the days when it's raining outside or it's too cold to go outside, to get them up and moving and doing some sort of activity. But like I said, we don't get the wiggles out ever. They have Energizer Bunny energy, and they they have no limit of getting that PE time in for them. But they also love sports. So we have soccer balls and we play soccer for hand-eye coordination and that sort of thing. I think because we homeschool and we're very lucky to be able to do that, we're able to integrate that in very easily. Whereas children who may attend public school or even private school only have a set amount of time during their day where they're either playing sports or in PE or whatever they call it. I don't even know what it's called these days.
It's still PE.
It is okay, all right, to go to PE, and they're sitting all day long. Where my kids, they never sit. They're always up and going, or running to the creek, throwing rocks. We throw rocks. We're always doing activity. So I don't know that we'll ever have to work really hard at making sure that they're doing physical activity, because that's just part of our day right now. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, Bradley is older and he has, you know, discovered the joys of Minecraft and Mario Kart.
Right.
And all of these like video game things. And so we're in the parenting of like, how do we balance screen time with, you know, in real life time with, and just like we do with nutrition, without demonizing screen time, because like homeboy built a bamboo farm and a McDonald's and a Walmart in his like little Minecraft world. Like he's living his best nerd life, right? And so it's so fun to see him do that, but we also need him to go outside. And so he's also really into soccer. And so at school, that's what's happening at recess. He's playing soccer with his buddies. We got him involved in a soccer program that happens once a week on the weekends. But I have to say, I feel bad, I guess, as a mom, but I outsource that, mostly to James, because, if I'm cooking dinner, I'm like, hey, babe, take the kids to the park. They need to go outside, and so he'll take them outside and they'll go to the park and they'll kick the ball around and play on the playground. During the week when Hannah's at home, I will take her with me to like the Y, because I go to a couple classes there because I really enjoy group exercise. And, the other day she was like, can I go with you to your class? And I was like, I mean, if you can keep it together, yes, like I would be more than happy for you to come and join, and over the summer I told Brad, I said, if you want to come with me and you want to sit next to me and do the same thing that I'm doing, I'm happy to have you do that, So I think it's just, if you can outsource to people who are more athletic than you, because like, Lord knows I need that. I think you should absolutely do that. But I also think just let them see, kind of like you do, Neisha, like let them see your tries at being active and moving. Like if you do YouTube workout videos, let your kids do that too. The ones that my kids love, I don't know if your kids do this yet, is Danny Go. And they love Danny Go on YouTube. And so we will do Danny Go videos together and dance and jump and do all the things.
Another thing that I really fought against, and this was more when Beckett, well, both times when I was bouncing back. I hate to use that term, but like whatever, it is what it is. From pregnancy and trying to like get back into being active. I always thought I have to wait till Bonnie's asleep or Beckett's asleep or when I have free time. And then like one day I just was like, forget it. I got to get a workout in. I got to do something. I haven't done anything in 3 days. And I did it with them and they just wanted to do it with me. And I was like, hey, look at that. I can just do it over here. I've been, putting a square peg in a round hole this whole time when I should have just like let it be. And they don't really, sometimes they're like especially if I'm doing push-ups or anything on the floor, they want to climb
They
on
want to
top.
lay on top of you.
Every time. So like, yeah, okay, it can interfere a little bit. For the most part though, they just want to do what you're doing and be your little shadows. So can it maybe just give in to that? Learn from me.
Yeah. I know when my kids were little, we always did the kid on the foot, the kid on the feet, and then you lift them up high. That's a lot of crunch work right there, especially if you got to do 6. I mean, you just got to keep going. That's a lot true. After a while. Cosmic Kids yoga is so cute.
Yeah. We've done that.
So
they
cute.
Have like frozen yoga and Moana yoga. It's super fun. Yeah.
All right, I'm writing that down. Cosmic
Kids yoga.
She's Australian. She has a great accent. I love her. Yeah, Hannah's super into that.
I do it with my adult kids. It's just really fun.
I love that.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, Bradley introduced me to Danny Go, and he's like all about it because they do it at school, and when they need little brain breaks, and they like dance. There's like a cowboy dance that he's do. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Next. We all get stressed and tired from time to time. What strategies help you deal with those unhealthy cravings? And I know you've got not the food in the house, so that helps. But say for, other people who maybe their children are old, like my kids, and they have brought stuff into the house. Like, how do you keep yourself from going and indulging? And how do you keep the stress level down for your kids?
Okay. I think when I think about, when I've worked with other clients and what we do in our house is that my kids' stuff is not at eye level, right? And for me, that helps. Now, that may not work for some people, but the fact that if I'm looking into the fridge or I'm looking into the pantry for what I know is not going to help me, if I don't see it, I'm not going to pick it up. And so all of my kids' snacks and things, albeit they're paleo things, like I'm not going to, sit there and drown myself in Simple Mill almond flour crackers. They're all right, but they're not that great. Like that's, most of the time I just wander around the house aimlessly until James is like, baby, okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not okay, And so I think, especially if you have a spouse or you've got older kids, like, if they're going to choose to have those things, then I would be like, okay, that's fine. Those are your things and you need to put them somewhere else, because for what I'm working on and the things that I need in my house, now if they're paying rent or something, maybe I'll have a different conversation, but in my house, I need to be able to feel peace. I need peace in my house, and I do not feel peace in my house when I'm having to have this mental white knuckle battle between me and the bag of Oreos. So I'm going to need you to take those somewhere else. I think the thing that I wished was there were more conversations about is that any type of self-care is a practice. Mm-hmm. It is something that you have to do every day. And you don't wait until the what hits the fan. Right. Because if you wait and you try and say, okay, well, I'll do the bubble bath, or I'll do the grounding, I'll do the Bible reading, I'll do these things when I'm stressed out, you will absolutely never turn to that, because your body is always going to do what it's always done, And so if you begin to make these self-care practices a daily practice, then essentially what you're just doing is building a more stress resilient body. I still get stressed out, but the amount of stress I can take has upped since 7 years ago. And do I sometimes get to that level? Yeah, I do. And then I have to have a moment where if I do give into a craving, I need to sit back and reassess. Okay, what happened? Why did that happen? Rather than just beat myself up about it, because that's not going to get me anywhere. It's not going to help me improve. But I find that I start to feel overwhelmed and anxious and more angsty when I'm not choosing to do the things that I know are helpful for my nervous system, for my body, on a daily basis. And so I think everybody has to find what those things are. And I really love to tell people, bookend your day with those things. It might mean that you have to get up 5 minutes before everybody else does. But if 5 minutes with a cup of tea in absolute silence keeps you from losing your stuff throughout the rest of the day, that is the most worth it 5 minutes of your day. If having 5 minutes at the end of your day or for me, it's like a whole thing because I'm extra, I want the bubble bath and the hot tea and a book, and I want to do all of those things. And so I also tell people, you got to have a flexible toolkit. Some nights some days you may get to have like the epic morning routine and the epic evening routine, and everything is amazing and the kids are perfect, and other people are like me and you live in real life, and some days you get to do one thing. And so like for me, baseline, my one thing is my tea. Like this is my emotional support tea. And so every evening I have a cup of tea. Sometimes I get a cup of tea and a book and time to myself and a bath. Or sometimes I get the cup of tea and then I go to bed. And so I think just finding the things that help your body feel calm. I say this to Hannah all the time. Find calm in your body, because when she gets wound up and she gets really like either she's crying or she's like bouncing off the walls, I'll say, where is your calm? And she's like, my legs. And I'm like, I don't even know if that's true, but we're going to go with it. And I'm like, okay, Hannah, where else is calm in your body? And she's like, my arm, and so we'll just talk. And by the time we do that enough times, she has calmed down and quit whatever she was doing, 5 minutes ago. And that's essentially what these practices are. It's just to help our body find peace and to find calm. And if we're running around every day in this constant like fight or flight angst, like we're never going to choose those practices unless we're super intentional about it. That was probably way too big of an answer, but that's what I have.
I love that so much. I feel like that's something that we don't talk about enough. Like we've got to figure out good coping mechanisms that aren't food. We've got
I'm
to
gonna
figure out. Yes, go ahead.
add to everything Alyssa said, but I'm going to say something profound that I should really only be talking about for an hour and not throwing into a 60-second bit here, but I'm going to do my best. I oftentimes see that most moms' stress is coming from something that is not actually what they're reacting to. It's not that your husband did not put the trash in the trash container but set it right next to the trash container. It's not that the laundry is next to the laundry but not in the laundry. It's not the little things. It's one thing that you're pushing down and not addressing. So I really would love for women in general to reflect on what that thing could be that is truly causing you to have all this stress. And the cup of tea is going to help, the bath is going to help, but if you don't address that thing that is truly stressing you out, and it may be something uncomfortable, and it probably is, most likely it is uncomfortable, which is why you are not addressing it.
Yeah.
But until you do that, these things are band-aids on a bullet hole. And sometimes this is trauma from years ago, or it could be something that only happened a few months ago. You have to really understand yourself and be honest. These things may just take you talking to your spouse. They may need you to address this in therapy. And none of those are bad things. Those are just ways for you to move forward with your health and wellness journey, and making sure you're taking that time for that true self-care, because that's the true self-care. You can't just keep pushing and thinking that these tiny habits are going to fix the bullet hole that you are just forgetting exists. And if you just don't look at it, it's not going to be there, right? Being very honest with yourself, vulnerable, and understanding that it's not going anywhere. If you keep not looking at it, it's still going to be there. And eventually that will cause even more health problems and stress problems. And by taking the time, that it's probably not even as long as you think it's going to be, to address that root cause or root trauma or whatever you want to call it, that's going to help you more than any little tiny thing. And then you can start adding those tiny things to be even happier and practice those things as coping mechanisms now that you're being honest about the truth about what is truly bothering you.
Yeah.
And I say this from experience.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
And I think overall, just having communication with your family helps. It doesn't matter how young your kid is. If you say, hey, it's really important to mommy to have some time in the evening by myself so that I don't have a crazy head, or whatever you need to say, they're a lot more reasonable than you think.
Yes.
Right?
They really are.
And talking to your children and talking to your spouse and saying, I really need your support on this. My kids have been so very good with supporting us in our keto journey. If ever we go out to eat and I'm like, oh, I want some of your fries, they're like, no, Mom, I don't want you to have any of the fries because you're not going to want them. I'm just doing what you say. Like, I'm supporting you. And then I'm like, fine, I don't want any of your fries.
Yeah.
So it really goes a long way. Just saying, will you please respect me? That actually leads into another question, which is like, what are some of the things that you do when you go to like a family gathering or a church party or something like that? Something that I did, we actually did a barbecue last night with my brother's family, and they supplied the meat and buns and stuff, and we brought deviled eggs, we brought caprese salad, and we brought, what was the other thing? Oh, cucumber sandwiches. Cucumber with cream cheese on top wrapped in ham. It was really good. So those are like vegetable sides, but they're all keto friendly. And then I literally had the meat and like a couple of the things that I brought, mostly the eggs. But then my kids had the other things. So that's been something that's been really helpful for me, is just to bring things that I know I can eat and contribute to those things.
Yeah. That's what we do. We contribute, and I always, if I'm going to a private party where there's a hostess or something, I'll always say, hey, can I bring deviled eggs? Would that pair with whatever you're having? Or what would be something that what's your main course, so that I can bring something that complements what you're having at your barbecue or birthday party or whatever, fill in the blank. But then on top of that, I have a meal specifically for pregaming, is what I call it, to go to these type of functions. And that often is it's not complicated. It's very easy. I have a huge thing of scrambled eggs, mostly yolk, so the fat is way up. Then I cook it in a lot of butter, even more fat, but it's protein too, like a lot of protein, a lot of fat, but kind of like smaller because I took the whites out, so it's more condensed, right? And that's what I eat right before I brush my teeth again and head out the door. And then I also, if I am going to have an adult beverage, I will have a big glass of unflavored electrolyte lemon water to kind of just like prime me for that glass of champagne or whatever I'm going to have. But that's what we do. We always pregame. We never go hungry. It's a recipe for disaster because even 8 years into this, if there are some Cool Ranch Doritos at the birthday party, okay, they have my number. And I will be like, oh, I'm just going to have one. And before you know it, like I have the whole bag and I'm carrying it around with me, you know. So I always eat before I go. And then I bring a dish if it's an appropriate thing for me to do. Yeah.
And I think the other thing, and we talked about this, I think, the other day on a live stream with Dr. Barry, is I don't say anything about what I'm doing.
Me neither.
Because if you say something, you have opened the door, right? Because I feel like people are always like, oh, now I think there are people who will come up and be in your business, right? Especially some family members. But I have learned that if you don't say anything, nobody's going to say anything to you. They're not going to ask you about, why do you only have meat on your plate, Alyssa? Now, if I walk up and I'm like, oh man, that whatever sure looks good, I wish I could have it, then they're going to say something. And my husband, I love him to pieces, has not yet learned that like people don't want to hear it. And so he walks into every family gathering like, oh man, guys, this is going to be great. I'm going to eat all this meat because this is the way to go. And I'm like, babe, let it go.
He's being the prophet. Yeah.
He is. And I'm like, babe, we've been doing this for 7 years. They know. Like they know and they don't care.
They do know and they don't care. But like you said, there's always that one person that's like nosy and in your business. I have a hack that works every time. If you just ask that person a very interesting question about themselves, then they forget all about you and they want to talk about themselves. No one really wants to talk about you. They want to talk about themselves. Okay. Just go, oh yeah, it's interesting. I am doing that. Hey, I saw your new car. Do you love it? Boom. They don't care what you're eating. They just want to tell you all about that new car or their trip to Disney World or their trip to whatever. If you pick one little thing, I promise you, most people don't actually want to talk about you. They want to talk about themselves. So that is a good way to just flip that around and have them not ask you a bunch of questions because no one cares.
I'm going to have Toby Keith's I want to talk about me stuck in my head for the rest of the day.
But it's true. And that's also a great way to start a conversation that you actually want to participate in instead of going, well, actually, studies have shown that saturated fat, like you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about it. Neither do they. I promise you. Okay.
I love that. What a great hack. I will totally use that. Why don't you tell me if you can think of a favorite or a fun Mother's Day memory that you have?
Oh, I think my favorite Mother's Day memory so far was the first Mother's Day. Beckett actually knew what Mother's Day was about. And so he woke me up and brought me a card and was like, happy Mother's Day, Mommy. I love you. I made you a card. And that so right there, I was like, oh my goodness. Wow. That was, I think, my first real Mother's Day where I felt like I was being appreciated. Like, of course, Ken always buys me something, but it's different when it's your kid and you are their mommy and they're like, happy Mother's Day. Like he screamed it like it was Christmas morning, like, happy Mother's Day. And yeah, so I think that's probably my favorite so far.
I love that. I have so many good memories of Mother's Day, like with my mom. My dad is a very quiet person and he's just real chill and I lucked out that I married someone very much like my dad, but on special days, he was like, okay, we got to get up, we got to cook breakfast for mom. Like he was like, and so every Mother's Day, both of us he would come wake me up, and we would go downstairs and we would cook breakfast for mom, and I would take her coffee, and I would take her breakfast on a tray, and just getting to do those things for her, because she did so much for us, all the time, like it. And he would, put like a single rose in a vase for her, and then eventually, like for Valentine's Day later on, I would get a single rose. And then my first Mother's Day, my dad sent me like a single rose in a vase, for my first Mother's Day. And so I was just like, because we did it together for so many years, and I was like, now it's your turn, but yeah, getting all of the cute little like crafts and all the fun stuff, that comes home. My kids can't keep secrets. So I get Mother's Day starting like probably May 1st. I'll start getting things coming home, and they'll be like, Happy Mother's Day for 3 weeks, which is great.
That's fine, right? Yeah.
I'm totally down for it.
Keep it coming.
Yeah.
So, but that's my favorite memory, is like the breakfast, cooking the breakfast in bed, and letting mom have a day where she didn't have to get up and do that.
That's so nice.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. Thank you so much. Mine's a little different, because I was going down my memory lane and trying to remember my own Mother's Days. And I remember we used to always get in a fight, because we'd always try to do like make breakfast and make dinner. And she always made everything. And so we didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to cook till I went to college, So we tried to do things. And I remember we always would get in a fight because we were trying to do something for mom. And then she would go away crying, and I'm like, what? I'm like, that's not a good Mother's Day memory. Why can I only think of that? But then I remembered, like, and it also was crying, which is so weird. Something that I always tried to do was give her gifts that would make her cry. Now that seems weird, right? But she was like a word person. And so we always would get cards that had like all the sentimental gooey, ness in it. And so if I gave her a good card and she cried about it, that meant she felt loved. And so I remember, that, and just thinking about how, our life, the simpleness of the foods that we're giving our kids, there's so much more to life. Like the single rose and some silly words like, my mom is in heaven right now. I wish I could just give her a hug. So Mother's Day is always hard, but I just appreciate so much your guys' example to me, and thank you so much for coming on this and sharing, these moments with us, and just, help me. I wish you were around when I had my kids in the first place. I would have done so many things differently, but I can only do what I can do now, which is just be with my teenage kids now and have fun with them and do what we want to do. So, yeah. But thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to say?
I'm glad we had this conversation. I hope some moms listened and got at least a few tips that might help them along their mothering keto journey. I don't even know. It's honestly, I hate calling it a keto journey, because it really just comes down to feeding your kids whole foods and nutrient dense foods, and don't overcomplicate it. Don't stress yourself out. You're doing a great job, even on the days when you feel like you're not. I promise your kids feel loved, and that's what's important.
Yeah, all the same. And thanks so much for having us. This has been a really great conversation.
Yep. And simple is the way. Simple is good.
Yep.
And it's still good. All right. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.